The lobbies and how to manage our lobbies. The requirement is up on the screen. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but Joe, I think it's a good time to reiterate what you said before. When people are trying to keep their lobbies safe, what is the health department going to be looking for, and what would you recommend they keep in mind?
I mean, again, as we talked about, a little creativity, whatever you can come up with to make sure that the customers are staying 6 feet apart from one another. It could be a sign, which it could be tape, it could be things on the floor, it could be rope and different things, whatever ways you can do it to make sure that customers are 6 feet apart while waiting for payment. We recommend if you can do payment at the table, that's one less line you have to worry about. So that would be helpful as well. And then also, there's a highlighted part here, implemented a plan. And that's, I think, one of the key messages that I want to leave today is that you really think about it. And obviously, there's over 400 of you on this call, on this webinar, so you are thinking ahead. But may have a plan and make sure that you have thought about all these things and use the tools that WHA and we're going to provide you to help you think about this and think it through and actually be ready to open when your county moves into phase 2. So this is part of that plan: is how will I make sure that how I make sure my customers are 6 feet apart from one another.
And I would echo that, Joe. I think this is an area where I do worry about our risk, and we've been entrusted to get open in phase 2. That was a large conversation about should we be in phase 3 or phase 2. And one of the areas I think that's on us to do well is our lobbies. I mean, all of it, but I think these are where we see people congregate and wait. So we are, as an association, are going to try to get out many of your ideas. If you have a creative idea where you can share, get that to our comm team so we can put that up. But we're hearing everything from having people to wait in their cars to having the areas to stand in your lobby to like lines you've seen outside grocery stores that control entry points. So please be creative and think this one through. I think this is an area where we are at risk, and we need to do a good job. Sam, has anything come in the or Julia, any questions?
Yeah, on this one? I think this is an area that folks might benefit from a little background on this. I think initially we saw a requirement for reservations, so we could only serve guests if they had a reservation. Then the intent behind that was making sure that staff and employees can prepare for and have an expectation of how many guests they're going to have and can plan for how folks are going to enter the building and exit the building, et cetera. But we know that there's a lot of members who just simply aren't set up to take reservations. They don't have a reservation system. So the suggestion was, why don't you let us figure out how we're going to control the flow in and out of our lobby. So I think this is a really critical thing we spend some time thinking about. Each location is different. So each plan is going to have to take into account how folks enter and exit the building and when we're going to let them know their table's ready.
Yep. And reservations might be one of the things you choose, but then it would be your choice. Mm-hmm. But reservations are also a great way to try to push out the wings. Everyone wants to be in our businesses between 5:30 and 6:30. Love to see more people in at 5 and still dining at 7. Sam, what has come in from the chat room? Any questions related to the lobby plan or clarifications that would be good to ask Joe while we have him here?
I think one question that I saw, which was great, was regarding the plan and if it needed to be written or submitted. And so I think that does an overarching ask of a lot of things, but Joe could probably answer that.
I can answer part of that. There's Elle and I will also talk about a plan, I'm guessing, during their time. For these, written is nice, and that's good for you. But in our conversations with the health departments, they're not going to be coming around and looking for written plans. They're going to be asking you questions and making sure that you have a plan, and that could be verbally described. That could be described via an email if they do an email inspection. As you will find out, inspections are being done a little bit differently too from the health department perspective. So written is always nice. It's a good record to have for you. But if you don't do a written one, then just make sure that you've thought it through and can answer questions and can demonstrate your plan too when you're actually open. But we will have, and on that too, we will have a checklist that we will want you to complete, and how a health department uses that will vary. Most of them may ask for that at some future point, but really want you to have that checklist just so you can show that, yep, I went through, and that'll be paper or filled out electronically. It's up to you, but you'll have a checklist to go through to just make sure, yes, I thought of that, I did this, and so that'll be an important part of the reopening.
Okay. Sam, any other questions in this area? All right.